Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Gateways of the Mind Live. Today, it's our great pleasure to be introducing to you Yakov Darling Khan, who is the one of the co-founders of the School of Movement Medicine. Good day to you, Yakov. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Good morning, David. Good to see you.
And what a beautiful morning it is today, Yakov, eh?
Stunning. I've been out walking on Dartmoor in the Dartmoor mist. Beautiful.
Yeah, we really are blessed at the moment to be having some quite extraordinary weather in Britain. It's extraordinary any time of the year, but to be having it at this late in the year is really quite special. So,
Yeah.
without further ado, let's get into this, Yakov. Probably the best place to start is for you to tell us about your background and how you came to develop the Movement Medicine School.
Absolutely. Well, I think probably start at the beginning. As a young child, I had a lot of experiences of, you might describe them as otherworldly experiences. For me, as a child, they were just my everyday reality. And for instance, I used to speak to my great-grandmother after she'd passed away. I used to see her sitting on the top of the stairs, and all this was fairly normal, like I think it is for a lot of kids. I spent a lot of time in lucid dreaming. My nighttime dreaming was far more real to me in a way than the everyday world. And that was fine until I became a teenager, where, of course, as a teenager, you want to fit in with your mates and you want to be part of the gang. And the things that I was into, I really had to put them to one side because they just weren't cool in the time I was growing up. So I put all of that to one side and just got on with being, playing my football and, just going partying and doing what teenagers do. And when I was studying video and photography at college, and went to London, and I started to have a series of dreams. And then strangely enough, I was on a golf course, and I got hit by lightning on this golf course. And after I'd been hit by lightning, I felt brilliant for weeks and weeks. But what happened was that it brought back into my awareness all the things that were going on for me as a child. And I started to have a whole series of dreams, and I kind of got that I had to see what that was all about, to start studying. And so I was looking for anything really which gave some kind of validity or meaning to the experiences that I was having. And I discovered shamanism, and shamanism really was the thing that put my life and my experiences into context. So I started working with different Native American shamans who were brilliant dream teachers, and that they taught me all kinds of stuff about working in the circle and doing ceremony and reminding me how to pray. And I worked with a Native American pipe for a while, but I always felt like with the Native American work that I was being loaned something to remind me what I already had, of what I already had. And then in 1989, I met a woman called Gabrielle Roth, who was the creator of the 5 Rhythms. She was a genius, a wild New York urban shaman, really extraordinarily creative. And her great gift was that she absolutely loved the creativity in people. And she was an expert in bringing that to the fore, and which was quite a shock for me because I wasn't into dancing in any way. Dancing was like a big no-no for me. Maybe if I was drunk, and even then only to one song. So I wasn't looking to dance, but I was looking for a way of working that was really of our own culture, that was medicine for our own culture. One of the things that Gabrielle often used to say, which made a lot of sense to me, was that shamanism is indigenous to its own culture. In other words, a shaman that grows up in their own culture knows the wounds of their own culture and is able to work with people who've grown up in that experience and guide them back to the soul. It's not that we can't receive things from shamans from all different cultures. I think we're living in a time where it's amazing that we're able to do that. But in the end, you have to translate it into your own world, the world that you live in. And so we worked with Gabrielle for 18 years, and during that time I was studying with lots of different shamans, particularly a shaman up in the Arctic Circle who I'd spent 12 years dreaming about. And I didn't realize actually he was a real human being for those 12 years. I was a bit slow, a bit dense on that one. It took me all that time to kind of go, I wonder if this is a real human being. And eventually I met him, which completely blew my mind. And it kind of blew to smithereens in a way that, you know, we're brought up in a world where rationality is king. And it's not that rationality is not a good idea. I think it's a good basis to be able to exist in a consensual reality. But rationality that says that anything that we can't measure or can't see directly, or everyone can't see with their own eyes, is nonsense. That's where the world of rationality and a more open understanding of how the world is starts to crash in my mind. And so that experience, it brought that, it kind of brought to an end in a way the doubts in me, that shamanic understanding had a real validity, because it hit me so hard between the eyes when I saw this guy, and this guy who I knew really well. I knew his house, I knew his face, I knew the landscape in which he lived, and he knew me, and we've had many times of learning together, and he's been a great guide and support for me. And around that time I started having a series of dreams in which I received this mandala, and this mandala is the mandala that it's like at the heart of our movement medicine work. And at the same time, my wife Susanna had a dream where she was told one of those very commanding dreams, something like, your work shall be known as movement medicine. And it was quite funny the way she described it, but it was also quite serious in a way. It took us several years to put those two things together, and it was only when I went to the Amazon and had a vision of this mandala again, and both Susanna and myself were told in the same vision, this mandala contains all the teachings of the work that you're going to be doing, called movement medicine. And movement medicine is a synthesis of everything that we've studied and experienced over these 30 years, and it's a very contemporary body of work that's grounded in ancient understanding and modern cutting-edge understanding of how the mind works and how change works, and the plasticity of the brain and all of these things. So it's a body of work that integrates these understanding in a way that's very contemporary, down to earth, but inspiring for people from all walks of life.
Wow, that's really quite a story to the interview, Yakov. And I just wanted to pick up on a couple of things. First of all, obviously you're going to be with us at Gateways of the Mind in November, which is an event about consciousness exploration where we do focus a lot on dreams. And I'd like to come back to that in a second about your life with your dreams. But first of all, I'd just like to ask a little bit more about your Arctic Circle shaman. That's quite a story. Is there anything else you can elucidate there about what you've learned from that individual, and what is the relationship you have with him now?
I mean, he's a very everyday man. I mean, if he walked into a pub, nobody would turn around and look at him. He's very humble man, and his grandfather and his great grandfather and his father were all shamans, but he grew up in a culture and at a time when shamanism was very strongly suppressed by the state and by the church, just like all indigenous people around the world. The Sami people, the Lat people have been very badly treated, to the extent that they weren't allowed to speak their own language. The drum, which is the very heart and spirit of their culture, it was illegal to own or make or play a drum, and people could be punished with death for owning a drum. So the powers that be had really attacked that culture very strongly. Of course, people had suffered with alcoholism, and the same story as you meet with indigenous people in North America, Australia, wherever the Europeans have been with that kind of dogma.
Yeah.
So when he was a young man, he had a dream where he was playing a drum, and it scared him to death, to be honest, because, you know, he was like, what do I do with that? You know, I've been taught all my life that that's the work of the devil, and, you know, but, you know, I know that it's my culture. And so what he did was he went to a museum in a place called Karasjok, which is in the very north of Norway, and it's the place where the Sami Parliament is, and there's a very beautiful museum of the Sami culture there. And in that museum, there's a very old drum, and he went and he stood in front of that drum and he started praying, and, you know, he was praying to Jesus because that's what he'd been brought up with, and he was praying and said, you know, please Jesus, tell me, is this evil? Is this bad? Because, you know, my heart's telling me I need to make a drum and work with it like my culture always has. And that night he had a dream where Jesus came to him and he was playing a drum and dancing and singing Sami Yoiks, which are the traditional spirit songs. So he kind of took that as okay, the big guy says it's all right, and he made a drum, and he's been playing that drum and working with that drum, and he played with it mostly by himself for about 30 years. And so his experience with that drum and what he was working with, it was very concentrated, very distilled. And one of the things he's really taught me is about the drum. So, you know, like many people in the West who get into shamanism, I got myself a drum and I was kind of banging this drum, and I didn't really know what it was for. You know, I knew it made me feel good. It kind of put me into some sort of trance, but, you know, I was kind of banging the drum, you know. And when I was working with him, one time I was with him and we were by a fjord, by this beautiful fjord with an island in the middle. And I was going out rowing with my drum. I was going to go to the island, and he came up to me and said, can I play your drum a little bit? And I was like, yeah, please, absolutely. So he stood there with this drum, and he picked it up, and he just stood there, and he looked around him, and he didn't do anything for about 15 or 20 minutes, except for stand there and breathe and listen. And I was like, what's he doing? You know? And then he played the drum, but he only played one note. And then he waited another 15 or 20 minutes. And this went on, I'm not joking, for about 4 hours. And he played the drum in all the different parts of the drum. Then he came up to me and he said, well, you know, when you play the drum here, it's calling these kind of spirits, and when you play it there, that kind of sound is working. You know, you should definitely never do that after twilight unless you're willing to stay up all night. And I was like, how do you know all this stuff? And he looked at me like I was a lunatic, and he said, well, I'm listening. And he taught me that, you know, the drum's a very powerful tool. And he taught me to have respect for that. And then I sat with him and I've drummed with him many, many times since then. And he's taught me to listen and to hear the effect that the drum is having, rather than just banging it and feeling my own experience. Also being aware of the experience of what's going on around me in nature, the response of the nature around, the response of the spirits. And he's taught me a great deal about that. I never really asked him for anything. When I went to see him, I just wanted to say thank you for being, you know, an amazing archetypal teacher for me. And I think because I didn't ask him for anything, he has given me a lot. And indeed, he even made me a drum, which for his culture, it's like I think it's the closest to a PhD I'll ever get. You know, it was that kind of validation and support. And he's been an elder for me. And he also, you know, the one question I ever asked him was, could you teach me a little bit about healing? He said, yeah, come. So I went to see him, and it's a long way to get there. It's, you know, it's right at the very top of Norway. And we were there for a couple of days and walking and just talking about different things. And then he said, okay, we're going to do the healing now. And he cleared out his living room, and then he lay down on the floor. And I said, oh no, I think you've misunderstood. I said, no, I wanted you to teach me what you know about healing. He said, yeah, I know. Heal me. I was like, which is, you know, I've learned that many times from working with indigenous shamans. Very often the way you learn is they just put you in situations where you have to bring out what you know, and then after that they'll give you guidance. And so that's very much the way he's helped me and supported me over many years.
Wow, that's really quite a story. And yeah, so to come back to what you said earlier, this elder, your shaman, you actually met him first of all in your dreams, and this was going on for many years before you even realised that you know, that this guy actually existed. And you know, for the sake of audience, just to perhaps explain a little bit more about how those dreams manifested. Were they lucid dreams? Were they vivid dreams? A lot of people watching this will be, you know, avid lucid dreamers, so perhaps they might be able to gain something from your experience.
Well, yeah, they were a whole mixture. I mean, I used to call them every time I worked with a group of people. I would call him, and I just used to call him the old man of the north. When I speak to him, I always tell him it was the wise old man of the north. At that time, it was just he was the old man of the north, and he, you know, I would close my eyes, I would see him, and he would give me information. It was very helpful. That was in the waking dream, so to speak. But when I was in a sleeping dream, I had a whole mixture of experiences with him, and many of those dreams were lucid. And in those dreams, he was giving me guidance. He was explaining things to me. He would help me with problems that I was having with my own healing, my own integration of my own childhood experiences, which, you know, for somebody growing up in the West is really, in the shamanic path, it's really, I feel, quite a challenge, because what I mentioned before about rationality being king, and, you know, these irrational experiences happening so often, to find a balance which is grounded is quite a challenge. And he really helped me with things like that. And so I would have conversations with him where I knew I was dreaming, and I really trusted what he said to me, and I took action based on what he said to me, and I went and studied with people. I even, you know, I taught workshops based on what he told me about. Once I'd kind of had a sense of that in my own life, you know, there was a lot of that experience, and
This was through the dream before you met him, or?
Well, the way I met him was I was working with a woman called Marilyn Tunsend, who was a student.
Carlos Castaneda,
yeah, well, she worked with Castaneda's teachers.
Yeah.
And I met her many times, and we had quite a lot of time together. And one time I had a lucid dream after working with her where I met Carlos Castaneda, and he told me he had a message for Marilyn. And I really didn't want to be involved particularly in that, but I thought, well, I'll deliver the message. But I didn't know where Marilyn was. I knew she was somewhere in the country. I called the organizer, and he said, well, she's at this hotel in Oxford. You know, I called her up, but Marilyn, in that tradition, that Castaneda tradition, they're very into sorcery, and they would often travel as very different characters. She had 3 different characters that she worked with. I had no idea which one she was traveling with under. But eventually I found the hotel, and I got a message to her. And that night I had a dream, again a lucid dream, saying, Yakov, go to London and find Marilyn, and go on the 10:19 train from Totnes. I was like, I woke up in the morning, I said to Susanna, my wife, I've got to go to London. I got on the train to London. I was on the train and going, you know, London, there's like 12 million people in London. How am I going to find Marilyn in London? I got to Paddington Station. I was in a very altered state. And I was sitting there kind of going, I really don't know where to go. I have no idea where she is. And then I got this kind of sense, go to West Kensington Tube Station. I went to West Kensington Tube Station. Got out, was walking around for about an hour thinking, you know, maybe I finally lost the plot here, you know. And I felt like I was in another reality. And eventually I kind of got this feeling to go to this hotel, which I drive past often now when I'm in London. And it's got a conservatory restaurant on the front of the hotel. And I just felt like attracted to that place. I went in there, and Marilyn was sitting there, and she got up, calm as anything. She said, hi, Yakov, I just ordered dinner for both of us. And I was like, you know, my eyes were popping out my head, and my heartbeat was kind of, I was, you know, on the edge of a kind of panic attack, really. said, Yakov. And I was like, what, Marilyn, what? She said, calm down, calm down. I said, calm down, I've just found you in London, you've just ordered dinner. What do you mean, calm down? She said, Yakov, calm down. And I was like, okay. And she said, what? I said, why? She said, if you don't calm down, Yakov, the spirits will give you something to be really surprised about. And I was like, okay, I'm calm. And during that dinner, we sat there and we had dinner. And we talked for hours and hours and hours about our experiences and about our dreams. And then she asked me about my guides. And I told her about the wise old man of the north. And she looked at me and she said, Yakov, that's not an archetype. That man's a living man and he's dreaming. Go find him. And, you know, when she said that, you know, you get those kind of electric shocks of knowing that climb up your back. And all, I don't have any hair, but I used to have some hair. And at that time, it stood on end. And I kind of knew. And it took me about 2 years to find him. And in fact, I'm writing a book about those experiences at the moment. And that's I'm going to be telling that story fully in that book.
Wow. I mean, I have a few friends that have studied also under Marilyn, and I've heard some quite interesting stories. So to hear you recount your own is also kind of concurrent with other stuff that I've heard. Okay, just sort of elaborating on again on the shamanistic theme and moving this time to your time in the Amazon. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about that. Your time spent working with Pachamama Alliance. As you know, we have John Perkins in London this coming weekend for our Plant Consciousness event. So all of this talk of shamanism is very much in line with both of the events that we have coming up in the next few weeks. So tell us a little bit more about you know, your time down there, what you were doing with Pachamama Alliance, and also I think you worked with the Be the Change organisation in the UK a little bit a few years ago.
Absolutely. Well, we've always, our work has always, it's not just been about let's have an experience on the dance floor, let's have an ecstatic experience and then go home and nothing changes. We've always had a sense of the bigger picture and the challenges we face as a human species and being out of balance and all of those things. And actually, we were very lucky that one of our students who'd worked with us for a long time brought our awareness to the Pachamama Symposium, the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium. And in fact, she ran a training for us, and we were very impressed with that work. And in a way, it felt like the river of work that's the Pachamama Alliance, that had been going a similar amount of time to the work we'd been doing, felt like a parallel river to us. And we were very happy to find that work and the high quality of it and the integrity of it. And we really felt the organization itself had a lot of integrity. We wanted to go and meet some of the people who were responsible for calling that organization into being, namely the indigenous people of the Amazon. And we'd already spent quite a lot of time in the Amazon before that. But we went on a journey with the Pachamama Alliance to the Amazon rainforest. And we met Don Rafael, who is the original, he's one of the elder Achua shamans whose visions and dreams were really the force behind the creation of this alliance between the indigenous people of the Amazon and people all around the world. And we were very, very impressed with the whole, the thing that really touched us most was that I'd visited many indigenous people and with groups and different kinds of things. And very often there was a feeling of us and them. And often the indigenous people were the ones with the wisdom, and they were, you know, we were the people who were just there to receive all their wisdom. But the whole essence of the alliance is the coming together of the brilliance of all cultures. And so bringing together the brilliance of the mind and the technological advances that we've made in the West and the industrialized world, along with the heart and the knowledge of living in balance with the earth. It's like how to bring together the best of all worlds rather than saying, well, this is the good and that's the bad, and let's see if we can bring it all together. And this was very much fitting with our own sense of how we needed to evolve as a human species. And meeting Don Rafael and you know, and interestingly enough, when we met Don Raphael, I'd been dreaming about him, and he'd been dreaming about my wife and myself as well. So we already knew each other. And in fact, he asked me to, in the first ceremony we did there with him, he asked me to do some healing work with his granddaughter in the ceremony, which was a remarkable thing. But it's the reason I'm mentioning it is because that level of trust and partnership is very much what the Pachamama Alliance is about. It's about respect and listening, and not just going in there as white people and saying, oh, we've got all these answers for you, we know how to save you and how to protect your forest. Not at all. It's like, please tell us what you need from us. Please tell us how we can work alongside you. And the Pachamama Alliance has been incredibly successful for over 20 years in protecting the forest of Ecuador. And even though the threats are still very strong and very present and current, that alliance has been very effective. And we really wanted to put our weight behind that. And, you know, we've been very lucky to meet a lot of the people who work with the Pachamama Alliance. And though I've not met John personally, I'm very close to David Tucker, who's known John for many years. And he speaks very highly of John. And, of course, I've read John's books. And, you know, I'm really delighted that he's coming to London to speak. I know he's got a lot of experience, both of working in the heart of Babylon, so to speak. You know, really, he came from working in the financial world, and you know, his whole background and his whole awakening to where we were going wrong as a culture, and his story with that is a very powerful story. You know, I'm really delighted that he's coming to also to speak, but also to bring back to life the Pachamama work within the UK, which has had a little bit of a hiatus. It's had a bit of a sleeping time, has been in this transformation, and I'm sure that the conference this coming weekend will really bring a whole new energy into that. And you know, I really want to recommend your listeners to get there and to hear John speak and to engage with the Pachamama, the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium, because it's a very inspiring, down-to-earth piece of work, which is, it's not just about, look, here's the bad news, folks. It's like, yes, here's the bad news. We're in trouble. But listen, this is all happening, and you have a part to play. Whoever you are, you have a part to play in this, and you have a role to play. And you know, I know that we've worked with that symposium and integrated it into our movement medicine work, and people have found it extremely supportive of their whole waking up process. And the essence of that is that they recognize that, you know, just to be spiritually fulfilled in your life is not enough. Indeed, you can't really have a sense of spiritual fulfillment unless you are engaging with the recognition that we need to live in a more environmentally sustainable way, and that we need to address the issues of social justice that are so out of balance. And it's only when you have these three things working together that human beings have a chance of that, you know, that thing that we're looking for, which is a sense of happiness and contentment.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with all of what you just said. One of the reasons that we asked John to come and speak at our Point Consciousness event next week is for exactly the reasons you've just said. I read his book, The World is As You Dream It, and totally resonated with the idea of changing the dream, you know. So, you know, I think when he went down to the Amazon, the people told him, you know, it's all well and good you coming to help us down here, but unless you change your society, the problems that are going on down here are not going to change, because the problems are coming from your society down to ours. And so you need to go back into your culture and change the dream there. And I really like that kind of, that, you know, that idea, and consequently.
Yeah, absolutely. That exact thing is right at the very heart of our work, of movement medicine work. You know, that it's, you know, to become conscious of what you're dreaming, not just while you're asleep, but while you're awake, which means to become conscious of the story you're telling about yourself and about life. And you know, that's it. Because we've come to recognize just how powerful that story is. And we're all capable, and indeed you could even say we all have a responsibility to become conscious of what story we're telling and what dream we're dreaming, both on an individual and a collective basis. You know, that's one of the, like you said, it's one of the main threads where we went, this Pachamama work and the work we're doing, they're really intertwined. It's why we've dedicated a lot of time and effort to supporting the Pachamama Alliance. You know, we run a long dance ceremony once a year, which is a 72-hour shamanic dance ritual, which is all about giving thanks to life. And also everybody who comes there, it's a not-for-profit event, and everyone who comes there has to raise a certain amount of money. And that event has raised over £250,000 for many projects, including a great deal of money for the Pachamama Alliance to support them in their work. And so we're really behind them and what they do. And I'm really happy, David, that you guys have got behind bringing that work a little bit more to the public awareness and bringing John here. Yeah, good on you. It's great.
We're really excited about the whole of next weekend, and what's interesting talking to you today is really you know, the bridge between what we're doing as event organisers with our Gateways of the Mind event, which is, you know, really about consciousness exploration, but also what we're doing with plant consciousness, which is about how we relate to the world. You know, in this case, particularly through looking at nature and looking at plants, but you know, then kind of expanding it out to a much bigger kind of context, and that's really where people like you know, John and the Pachamama Alliance and the Be the Change Awakening the Dream Symposium, I think really have a role to play. And so what we're trying to do with our work is explain to people through the Gateways event that it's very important to go on the inwards journey and to connect with yourself and to step, you know, to start stepping into your own power. But then with the plant consciousness event is to say, well, how do you then reflect that back out into the world, and how do you become the change, or you know, or be the change, as the guys at Pachamama like to talk about. So with all of that in mind, I just wanted to wrap up with yourself telling us a little bit about how that's all going to come to fruition with your talk at Gateways of the Mind in a few weeks' time, because obviously we've talked a lot about shamanism. Gateways of the Mind does quite often go into shamanism into some detail, but you're more known for your School of Movement Medicine. So just give the audience a little bit of a taster about how those things are all going to come together at Gateways in a few weeks' time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. I mean, I know a lot of that conference we're dealing with the reality of mortality, so to speak, and one of the things that movement medicine is really designed to address is the relationship between the spirit, or the part of us that's long-term, that has a long-term existence beyond this body. That is connected to a dream that goes right back to the beginning and goes way forward to the end, and the physical being, the body itself. And you know, it's one of the challenges that we as industrialized and Western culture, civilization so-called, face, is that we've really lost a sense of a good relationship with the body, with basically the kinesthetic intelligence. You know, for us, the body is a library of wisdom and experience. It not only does it record all of our experience, both the difficult things that we've had to face, but also the experience and the wisdom of our ancestors. It has its own intelligence. And so, for instance, in our view, the body is dancing all the time. The heart is beating, the blood is circulating, the organs know how to work, the cells replace themselves. There is a dance that's going on through the 100 trillion cells of your body every minute of every day of your life. But we, as a culture, we live very much in the head. We live very much in the culture where the mind is king. And again, that's kind of out of balance. It's not that the mind is a bad thing, but if the mind isn't rooted to the body, if it's not rooted to the cycles and the natural cycles of the body, which is, the body is made of earth, so it is connected to earth. The energy through which I'm talking to you now is solar energy. We are 70, 80, 90% water. We are, without breath, we don't live. So we are elemental beings. And the body is the part of our intelligence that knows that. So my talk's going to be about bringing together the relationship with spirit, or our more eternal self, with the temporal vehicle that we live this life in, this body, and how to bring a sense of dialogue, of balance, of healing in that split that we suffer from in our culture, which is the split between spirit and body. You know, for many, many hundreds of years, mainstream religions have told us that the body and all that it represents is bad for us. You know, it's about sex, it's about sensuality, it's about, and you know, we have to aim for the spirit. We have to be good people, and if we live a good lives, we're going to be rewarded in some, you know, heaven that exists beyond this life. And there's no greater contrick has been played on the human being. There is nothing more disempowering for a human being than to be out of touch with the excuse me, with the power, the intelligence, the sensuality, the creative power that is within the body. And our work is all about helping people to recognize that you don't have to learn to dance. You just have to get over your own self-consciousness and give the body back to the intelligence that's moving it. And then you will be being danced. And that's an extremely powerful, often ecstatic and deeply creative avenue to a human being's empowerment. And not only that, it also brings us very deeply in touch with our own, the intelligence of our heart. So movement medicine is really about how to bring body, heart, and mind together in movement, and to recognize the intelligence that we've been given in this life, not to wait for some future life, not to wait for some afterlife, but to bring what we've been given together so that we can really know who we are and what we have to give. And for me, you know, movement and dance, you know, I told you before that dance was not my thing, and it's one of life's little jokes that I ended up teaching movement. But I've discovered time and time again, when I move, when I bring my consciousness into the body and move, my mind becomes more quiet, it opens up, and I get connected to a much broader intelligence than my mind that's kind of sailing in the sky somewhere unattached to its roots.
Yeah, well, it's just such a great explanation of why you're going to be a part of our event this year, Jakob, because I'm sure there are a few people out there wondering, thinking, oh, I always thought Gateways was about lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences and you know, what's someone like Jakob doing on the program. But, you know, having your explanation there, as indeed we've talked about before, you know,
well, you don't understand, you know, for most of us, we're living in an out-of-body experience. Like most of our country spends all of its time in an out-of-body experience because we're not engaged, we're not listening. So, you know, I think it's great to become aware of that out-of-body experience. But, you know, we also, in order to make a difference in this life, we have to bring our spirit here, to be present, to be able to engage, so that when we have those experiences that we can have in our lucid dreams, it's not just like going to the movies, it's not just like entertainment, it's information for how we live, how we walk, how we eat, how we are in relationship, how we make a difference.
Yeah, totally. And you know, with what we're doing with Gateways of the Mind, particularly, we're talking about the ideas of consciousness exploration, which sometimes can feel quite ungrounded because of the nature of the discussions, particularly when, you know, talking typically about out-of-body experiences or lucid dreaming or altered states of consciousness. But for us, one of the things we always like to impress on people is that if you're looking for a magical experience, if you're looking for a mystical experience, it doesn't get much more crazy than being a human being on this planet. You know, how much more magic do you possibly need in your life? And we like to remind people that fact, to bring them back into their body and say, look guys, stop looking out there for something and start looking here right now. You know, everything's happening in this moment, and to remind people of that. And I think that's why it's so important that you're bringing that message to our event this year, where we're talking about consciousness through the wheel of life, you know, through being born, through living, and then going into, you know, into the dying space, and perhaps what lies beyond that. So it's really a great pleasure to have you on the program this year, Jakov. And of course, just quickly to let our audience know about something which we're just about to announce in the next few days, you're going to be doing a special evening workshop on the Saturday evening after Gateways as well, called Moving into Dreaming. Just quickly give us a heads up on what that's going to be about.
Well, it's going to be like a brief but powerful introduction to our work, and through movement. You know, one of the things that people who've researched lucid dreamings have discovered is that there's nothing better for your chances of becoming lucid in your nighttime dream than doing an activity during the day which engages more of your right brain intelligence, and bringing your attention and focus into the body moving and giving the body back to rhythm so that the body is moving. And it's not about being a good dancer, it's not about impressing somebody with your moves, it's about bringing your focus back into the body and really finding out how the body moves, and letting go in that. And that's an amazing bridge. When you do that work and you take the very specific and quite special stillness that you can find in body, heart and mind through intensive movement, when you bring that to your dreaming practice, the chances of making that bridge into being awake whilst you're asleep are much enhanced. And so I'm really happy to offer that during the Saturday night of the Gateways of the Mind conference, because it may give people a little bit more, it stacks the cards in favour of a more direct experience of all the great ideas that are going to be shared during the days.
Yeah, totally. You know, and we're always through what we're doing with Gateways trying to push the boat in different directions and to get people to think expansively and to embrace different ideas. I know you're good friends with Charlie Morley, who's, you know, an integral part of the Gateways experience, and I know you've just done a retreat with Charlie. So it just clearly shows that, you know, the links between movement and lucid dreaming really are real, and you know, someone like Charlie, who's a very well-known lucid dream teacher, totally embraces that idea. And I think, again, that's why it's important you're going to be at Gateways this year, but basically demonstrating, and hopefully, you know, if people go home after that and they come back on the Sunday morning, a good few of them will have you know, had their own lucid dream experiences, or maybe something more profound even than that, and they'll be able to share that with us on the Sunday. So it's been excellent talking to you today, Jakov. We probably could sit here and talk for about another 3 hours. There's lots of things I would like to have asked you, but I know you're a busy guy. Where can people find out more information about School of Movement Medicine and what you do? Is there a website or something they can check?
Schoolofmovementmedicine.com. We just, in fact, our new website went live yesterday, so check us out. There's a whole program is on there and all kinds of information. You know, also our book, which is called Movement Medicine, is available on the website. And yeah, you can find us, and look forward to meeting many of your listeners at the Gateways of the Mind conference. And thanks very much for the invitation. I'm really delighted for this new collaboration. It's great to meet you and work with you, David. Good luck with the weekend that's coming up, and look forward to seeing you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jakov. And just to reaffirm that if you haven't already booked your ticket for Gateways of the Mind, what the hell are you waiting for? You can find information about the conference at our website, gatewaysofthemind.com/London. There will also be some information coming out, I think, later today about the evening workshop that Jakov's going to be doing at Gateways, and also the Plant Consciousness Weekend that we were just talking about a little bit earlier with John Perkins and many other great talkers is next weekend. We have the Be the Change Symposium, which will be opened by John, where he'll be telling the whole Pachamama Alliance story in person, which is really a rare opportunity, actually. I mean, the Be the Change / Awakening the Dreamer symposiums are run all over the world, you know, quite often on a daily basis, but very rarely is John actually able to participate due to his very busy schedule. So that's taking place in the October Gallery in Bloomsbury on Friday afternoon. We have, I think, 3 places left. You can find out more information about that on our other website, plantconsciousness.com. where you can also find out about next Saturday's conference, which John will be talking about, and also John's going to be doing his Shape Shifting Yourself and the Planet workshop on the Sunday. So there's really a lot going on. You know, if you're out there listening to what we're talking about now and finding it all interesting from whichever perspective, the dreaming, the shamanism, the movement, hopefully you can really see the links between all of these different sort of methodologies, pathways and practices we're talking about, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for one of these great events and really learn something, and perhaps go out there and be the change, or feel inspired to do something with your own practice. So I look forward to seeing hopefully a lot of you over the next few weeks. Once again, thanks to Yakov for your time today. Really a great pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully we're going to see you at Human Consciousness next weekend. You know, we'll be able to see you there.
Yeah.
And to see you again in a few weeks' time for Gateways.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot, David. Really good to see you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Take care, Yakov, and we'll speak soon. Take care. Bye-bye.